So welcome everybody. My name is Bob Geyer. I'm a volunteer with Vista Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I will be your Zoom host today, and co-hosting me is Ryan Lynn. Ryan will call on you if you have your hand raised and would like to ask a question. Our guest will be taking questions at the end of her presentation, so please wait until she asks for a question at the very end. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Deborah Armstrong. Deborah, welcome. I appreciate you being here today to talk about Siri shortcuts. So take it away, Deborah.
Well, hello, everybody. So what I'm going to talk about today is complicated, but I am recording and I will be sending out the link. Plus, I will be giving out my email. I know normally people don't want to give out their email, but my email is public. It's right there on the Anza College website. So I'm going to be giving it out to you. So if you have personal questions, you can email me and ask them. I'm not that busy in the summer. Okay. The other thing I want to tell you before we get started is that you are going to get a choice today. Now, I know Bob said you're going to ask questions at the end, and that's still going to be the case, but I have 2 demos to play for you. And if you want to have more questions and less demo, I'm going to ask you to raise your hands during the first demo, and then Ryan's going to tell me how many hands we have, and that will determine whether or not I play the second demo. So you all will be able to choose whether you want more interaction or more demo, and that'll be up to you. So again, we're going to ignore raised hands until I play my first demo. And during that demo, you can go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll count them and make a decision at that point whether we want the second demo or not. Okay, I'm going to give you my email. I'm going to give it to you twice now and at the end. So if you can't write it down now, scramble around, get something to write with. Also, you can email Bob and he can email me. My email is armstrongdeborah@deanza.edu, and I'm going to spell it very quickly. We're going to start with Armstrong. That's A as in Alpha, R as in Romeo, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, T as in Tango, R as in Romeo, O as in Oscar, N as in November, G. So that's Armstrong, like the dude who landed on the moon. Deborah, and that's D as in Delta, E as in Echo, B as in Bravo, O as in Oscar, R as in Romeo, A as in Alpha, H as in Hotel. Deborah. And then there's the @ sign, and then deanza.edu. So that's D as in Delta, E as in Echo, A as in Alpha, N as in November, Z as in Zebra, A as in Alpha, .edu. So period, and E as in Echo, D as in Delta, and U as in Uniform. And I will give that out again at the end. Okay. So we have only an hour and a half, and we've used up some of that with my long email address. What the plan is that I'm going to be talking for the first half hour. I'm going to then play a 20-minute demo. We're then going to either decide if we want to hear the next demo, which is about 10 minutes, or take questions for the rest of the time. I also want to say something about the types of questions I would like you to ask. Remember, it's really important to be audience-centric. So when you're asking a question, think about, is this relevant to the audience? So if you're going to tell me a long personal story, I am going to cut you off. And that is not to offend you, but to recognize that we want to enhance the experience for everyone who's listening to my presentation. And if you have an issue like, oh, I tried this on my phone and it doesn't work, well, you can email me and I'll help you. But I'm not going to waste the audience's time helping you with a personal problem. So don't feel offended. We just want to make the audience get the most information possible out of my presentation. All right. Siri shortcuts. You need to approach these things with an attitude of curiosity. And so if you are feeling frustrated because you can't get something to work, you need to look at it like playing a game. You know, when you play a game, you win, you lose, sometimes things don't work. The more you approach it with that experience of adventure and fun, the more luck you're going to have with this, because it is complicated. And you know, it's so nice now that we are having a presentation from someone like me who's not trying to sell you something. But you know what? I am actually trying to sell you on how fun it is to learn a new skill. So even though this is complicated, it can be a real adventure. So let's start out with what is a shortcut? Oh, and by the way, I have some allergies. So if I start coughing, I will mute myself, but I don't think I'll go away. I have a pretty good internet connection here. So what is a shortcut? A shortcut is a series of steps. Oh, I forgot something else I wanted to say. I am not going to be doing anything visual in this presentation, so don't bother trying to look at the screen. I cannot edit video. I don't see well enough to edit video. However, if you need visual information, I'm going to be giving you quite a few tips, so don't sweat it. So all you're going to get too from me is an audio recording, but that doesn't mean I don't have tips for low vision users. Okay, so what is a shortcut? A shortcut is a series of steps that allow your iPhone or iPad to perform a complicated action with you only issuing one command. And I want to say that the term Siri shortcuts is a bit of a misnomer because Apple has been marketing these things as Siri shortcuts to make it easier for beginners to get involved with it. But in fact, you can have Siri without shortcuts, and you can have shortcuts without Siri. So, for example, if I say to Siri, spell initiative, which is a word I misspell all the time, she'll start spelling it to me, and we don't need a shortcut or anything like that in order for that to happen. But if I say, check my flight status, she'll say, well, I don't think I can do that. And that's because I do not have a shortcut called check my flight status. So just as you can have documents without printers and printers without documents, you can have Siri without shortcuts, and you can have shortcuts with and without Siri. However, if you want to create a shortcut on your own, you usually have to use the Shortcuts app, and it's built into iOS, though in iOS 12, you had to go ahead and download it from the App Store, but now it's built into iOS. And new to iOS 16, they've been really trying to get more beginners to use shortcuts. So we have this new concept called the app shortcut, which I think is a real bad name for it because we already got Siri shortcuts and we've got the Shortcuts app, and now we have app shortcuts. But what app shortcuts are is basically one-line things you can run without any particular setup. And they're really the same thing as the old style Siri shortcuts that you would get these suggestions, and you still get suggestions. And when you get a Siri suggestion, like suppose you called somebody, I always get this Siri suggestion that says, call Robert Armstrong. And Robert Armstrong is my husband. And so because I call him a lot, I'm always seeing a little pop-up that says, call Robert Armstrong, because these little one-line app shortcuts are designed to do one thing quickly, what used to be called Siri suggestions, and still iOS sometimes calls them Siri suggestions. What's nice about app shortcuts or Siri suggestions, however you want to label them, is that no setup is needed. Basically, when one of these little dudes pops up, you just tap add to Siri, and at that point, now it's a Siri shortcut. So, for example, if I said record voice memo, nothing would happen. But if I had seen record voice memo as an app shortcut or Siri suggestion, and I chose to add it to Siri, at that point, now if I said to Siri, record voice memo, it would work. So many, many apps have built-in shortcuts. And when that's true, many of these app shortcuts, these one-line app shortcuts, one of these one-line setup things, no setup things, will be popping up and asking you to interact with them and add them to Siri. So you don't need to use the Shortcuts app or learn how to create shortcuts in order to use them. You just have to be alert to these suggestions that pop up in your apps and add them to Siri. And at that point, you can call them up with Siri. So the kinds of suggestions you will see are showing frequently used or recently completed operations. Okay, one that I see all the time is get directions. So it seems like if I happen to be riding somewhere and I look at a map, then later I have a Siri suggestion that says get directions to that location. So get directions to, and it'll show my home address. And I don't really need that, so I just ignore it. Or if I needed it, I would do add to Siri. So that's all I'm going to say about these new app shortcuts in iOS 16, what used to be called Siri suggestions. The most of my presentation today is going to be on using the Shortcuts app. And I'm going to start by explaining two very fundamental terms you need to know in order to understand the Shortcuts app. Now, the Shortcuts app, like I said, is built into iOS. All you have to do is say launch shortcuts to Siri and it'll pop up, or you can poke around on your home screens and find it, or find it in your app library. But once you've got it running, there are two fundamental concepts you need to know in order to work with it. The first concept is that of an action. And an action is a series of steps that is built into iOS. And one podcaster I listened to called it a Lego block. The idea is that you can use an action as part of what you need to build a shortcut. And I think to explain these steps a little bit, I want to talk about recipes in cooking, because order is so important. And one of the mistakes that beginners, including me, make is that we choose all these actions and we have them out of order, so our shortcut doesn't work. That is the biggest reason a shortcut doesn't work, is because order is so important. So let's suppose you're going to make a cake. Well, you cannot bake this cake until you mix the cake. But you know what? You cannot mix the ingredients until you get the ingredients out. And you can't get the ingredients out until you went to the store and you bought them. So if you think about the steps, they are: go to the store, find the ingredients, put the ingredients in your cart, take the ingredients home, put them away in the cupboard. Cake baking time comes. Get the ingredients out. Get out your utensils, mix your ingredients. Okay, you can't bake things until they're all mixed up. But you know what? You also cannot bake it until you put the mixture into your pan. And oops, did you remember to preheat the oven? So wait a minute, maybe you have to preheat the oven before you mix the ingredients, or maybe before you put them in the pan. So order is so important, and that is the number one reason your shortcut will fail. So always think about all these little steps and what order they need to run in order for your shortcut to be effective. Actions produce output. Every action produces what programmers call an output. And by the way, if you're really interested in learning to write computer code, this is what you're doing in shortcuts. The only difference is you're picking choices off a menu, but you're using a lot of the same concepts you would use if you were a computer programmer, a software engineer. So iOS calls these outputs that actions produce results. And I think result is a much more human term than output. So the result of action X becomes the input for action Y. And I'll give you an example in a minute. Information flows from one action to the next. So the next step often, but not always, uses the output or the result of the previous action. So let's walk through an example. So let's suppose I want to speak a phone number. Now, first of all, why would I want to do that? That's because I'm at work a lot and I'm going to call somebody, but I don't necessarily want them to know my personal number. And also, at work, I'm supposed to be using my work phone, right? But I may have their number on my iPhone. So I may want to speak that phone number, but I don't want to call it. So the steps to do that are going to be, first, I'm going to ask for input. I need to know the name of the contact. And then the second step is going to be that I'm going to get the contact as a result of the name that I asked for. That means I needed to pull up an edit field and I needed to type in a name, and then I need to get the contact associated with the name. And then from the contact, I need to get the details of that contact. From the details, I need to get the phone number. And then once I have the phone number, I need to speak it. So you can see that each action has a result. When I get the contact, the result is the contact. When I get the details of the contact, the result are all the details that are inside. When I get the phone number, the result is the phone number. And when I speak it, the result is the voice speaking. So just quick review, defining terms. Actions are building blocks that you need in order to create a shortcut. And so let me talk more briefly about actions. Oh, and results are what each action is putting out here. Okay, let me talk a little about actions themselves. Actions can belong to iOS, be built into iOS, and there's just hundreds of them. Or they can belong to specific apps. Remember, I talked about getting my flight status. Well, most of the airline apps like Alaska and American have actions built into them for getting your flight status. But if you did not have an airline app on your phone, there would be no action for get your flight status. Now, the ones that are built into iOS are categorized into 6 categories, and that's how they display in what's called your actions library. And my demo is going to be showing you that. Those 6 categories are sharing, documents, web, scripting, location, and media. And that's how you're going to look them up if you're just browsing. But you can also tap a search field and search for a particular action. There's also the category of all actions, and there's also the category of apps. And under apps, you'll find all the actions that are specific to the apps on your phone. So your friend might have an action you don't because either they have another version of iOS or they have an app you don't, and vice versa. Okay, actions also have parameters. And a parameter is an optional thing you can pass to an action so that it responds in a particular way. Now, I've told you before that an action is going to grab the result from the previous action. But a lot of times you want something different. So, for example, maybe you want the text to say, hello there, instead of the result of the last action. So you would change its parameters so that it now said something. Or maybe you do want it to use the result of the last action, like you wanted to speak the phone number, but you wanted to use a different voice. You wanted to use a different speech rate. You wanted to use a different volume level. So all these are different parameters you can pass to an action. Other parameters include a file to grab, a URL to visit, like I said, the volume level, the length of time of a recording. And let me tell you a little bit about how to get to these. So when you are actually looking at an action, when you're focused on an action, the way you're going to see its parameters is to either pick show more, which is a button that often appears below the action, or using the actions rotor in VoiceOver. Now, visually, what happens is there's a little icon you click, and then you see all these choices. But with VoiceOver, what you need to do is use the actions rotor. So you know how when you're in a message or when you're email and you flick up and down to delete the message or email, it's the same thing. So when you're in the actions, when you're focused on something and it says actions available, that means you can flick up and down to like choose some of these parameters. And typically what it'll say is something like edit. So it'll say edit voice, edit. And as you're flicking up and down, you may see the default result, and then you flick again and you'll see that you can choose to edit it and put something else in as a parameter. Now, I'm almost ready to do my demo, but I want to give you a couple tips on working with shortcuts using VoiceOver. I talked about using the actions rotor. Don't forget about that when it says actions available. It means you can flick up and down to get other things to happen. It is a very busy screen in the Shortcuts app, especially when you're creating a shortcut. But there are a lot of items on it that you can collapse. So for example, there's a big section called action suggestions, and I hate it because most of them are useless to me. The first thing it always says is get directions, call Robert Armstrong. I'm like, no, I don't want to add these things to my shortcut. So you can expand or collapse that. Whenever you see something in that screen that says it's a heading, you can double tap on it and it will collapse it. So it won't be visible, but it pops up again. So you have to keep doing that to make it go away. The other thing you can do is turn off hints in your router, and you can turn off describe images. And I want to say, if you're more advanced, you'll want to turn describe images on, because there are a few controls there in more advanced actions that actually VoiceOver doesn't read. So describing images is good if you're advanced. It's annoying if you're a beginner. It creates a lot of other chitter chatter you probably will just find confusing. My last tip is, if you're flicking around in the actions rather than doing explore by touch, you want to add containers to your router. So you can go into the VoiceOver settings and do that. And that makes the flicking more logical, because you can flick up and down to move between containers, as well as right and left to move within one. Now, let's suppose you are low vision. Couple tips here. The first one is, if you can borrow an iPad or you have an iPad, you might be happier doing this on an iPad. And the reason is, on an iPhone screen, they've got all this stuff they have to do. So they've got all these portions of the shortcut creation app that are collapsed or expanded. And sometimes they hide other things that you want to see. But on an iPad, on the right-hand side of the screen, all of the actions that you are currently looking at are displayed in a nice long list. So it's really easy to see them and to touch them too, if you don't mind working with the larger screen real estate of the iPad. The other tip for low vision users is YouTube. If you want to know what this screen looks like visually, get on YouTube and search for iOS shortcuts tutorial, because the screens are very visual. They have a lot of arrows. So when you have action A and the result is going to be fed into action B, there are little arrows and lines that show you the flow of the process. Also, the results show up as cute little blue pill-shaped icons. And so it's very easy to tap on one to see what else you can do with it. Whereas with VoiceOver, everything is voiced to you, and it can sound very, very confusing. So lastly, before I do my demo, I want to run through just a quick examples of shortcuts I've made and shortcuts some of my friends and podcasters I've heard about have made. And I'm sticking with shortcuts that I think are useful for blind and low vision users. So delete photos. Why would you want to delete your photos? I was a guide dogs, and my husband wanted pictures of all the doggies and all the people and everything. And I didn't want to have my phone all cluttered up with pictures. So what I did is I wrote 2 shortcuts. One emailed him all the photos on my phone. And then the next one deleted all the photos on my phone. So as soon as he said, okay, I've got all the photos, I could delete them. And then I could pass my phone around and have my friends take pictures again. So that was really useful. Another shortcut I created was called Audio Now and Video Now. And Audio Now starts a voice recording, but then it turns it off after an hour. And it's really nice if I want to discreetly record, because I have it on my home screen, so I can just tap on it. No one knows I'm recording, or I can just say Audio Now. You know my secret. So when I say Audio Now, my phone's recording, or Video Now. Okay, another example I see a lot is FaceTime a specific person. So a lot of people create a shortcut that does that. I have a shortcut that turns on Do Not Disturb and loads up Zoom if I know I have to join a meeting on my phone. I have another shortcut that turns off VoiceOver and launches Photo Viewer. So when I want a sighted friend to look at some pictures on my phone, I can do that shortcut, and they don't have VoiceOver in their way, and they're looking at the photos. I text my location to my husband. That's another one I have written. I have another one I'm going to show you is read my location out loud. Turn up the volume. How many times have you turned on your phone and it doesn't say anything? You're like, what happened to my speech? And you don't know if the volume's turned down or VoiceOver's turned off. So I have a shortcut to turn the volume up all the way. So I know at least that's not a problem. And a last one that I've seen in a lot of podcasts is perform OCR on an image and read it out loud, because that's built into iOS. Okay, I was going to talk a little bit about automations, but I see that I'm starting to run out of time. So If I have time, I will talk about automations, but let me see. What else do I need to really tell you? Oh, I need to tell you there are several different ways to run shortcuts. Actually, there's 6 ways to run shortcuts, and you can take your time learning all these. You can add them to your home screen. I've talked about that. You can run them 2 different ways in the Shortcuts app. There's a screen listing all the shortcuts you've created and all the starter shortcuts it gives you, and you can run them by just double tapping on them. You can run them through Siri, of course. You can also create a voiceover gesture. Like if you have a voiceover gesture that's unused or that you don't use very often, you can actually go into voiceover settings and change that gesture so that it now runs a shortcut. Like for example, if you're low vision and you never use the screen curtain, the 3-finger double tap, you can turn that into, instead of screen curtain on or off, you can make it activate a shortcut. The other method that's kind of interesting is in the settings for assistive touch and switch control, there's something called back tap. And that allows, it was originally for physically limited people, but it works for everybody. You to tap the back of your phone twice or 3 times to activate something. There's a lot of built-in things that let you activate, but you can also tell it to activate a custom shortcut you've created. And the very last way you can run a shortcut is through your share sheet. You know, when you pick something, you often can choose share. And what pops up when you choose share is something called the share sheet. And you can add your shortcut there so that the thing that you tap, the item like the file or the photo or the contact, now can be passed as input into that shortcut that you created. Okay, I want to remind you again with questions that you are not going to be able to ask me, how do I get my iPhone to do such and such? Because I'm not going to have time to help you with that. But that doesn't mean you can't get help. I have all sorts of resources, and we can talk about how I can get all those resources to you. But one of the quicker things you can do is look in the Shortcuts gallery. And that is the 3rd tab, which I'll be showing you in a minute on the demo, and is curated list of shortcuts that Apple has produced that are for you to play around with and explore and learn from. Other ways to get more info. National Bureau Press used to have a book on shortcuts. I didn't find it in their catalog, so you need to call them and find out where it went. There's a book called Take Control of Shortcuts. It was updated in January 2023, and that book is available on takecontrolbooks.com or on Bookshare if you have a Bookshare subscription. The author of that book is Rosemary Orchard, and she has done a podcast called Automators. That's AUTOMATORS. And so if you look for the Automators podcast, that can be very helpful. The other thing to know is that there is a whole series of community calls under ACB Community Podcast. So if you go to acbmedia.org and you search for Understanding Shortcuts, you will find this 10-hour series that Darcy Bernard did. And he goes into great tutorial depth about creating shortcuts and working with them. So that's something to check out. And of course, there is always the iOS Shortcuts User Guide from Apple. And so if you Google for iOS Shortcuts User Guide, you'll find that. And that has a table of contents, and it's very helpful. So I'm going to take a second now to reshare my screen. And when I do that, then I'm going to be playing you this demo. It's going to take a minute for me to do that because I'm a keyboard user. And once the demo starts playing, you know, if there's no sound, someone's going to let me know. But also, it's time for you to raise your hands and start thinking about your questions. And then we'll look at how many questions we have and decide if we want to learn about automations and play the second demo, or if we want to do that in another check it out call. So give me just a second for me to share my screen, and we'll just do that right now. Okay, it says I'm sharing my screen, so I'm going to go back here and start my recording. I'm sorry about JAWS. I'm going to shut it up in a minute.
We actually can't hear your JAWS, so you're just fine.
Okay, well, let's hope you can hear my audio. If you can't, I'll go back and try that again. So here we go. I would like to start by showing you a screen you might see when you launch the Shortcuts app that you may find very confusing. Now, I'm on iOS 16 and I've been creating shortcuts since iOS 12. So you might get a different initial screen that has all kinds of chitter chatter and tips and sample shortcuts. You guys can hear that fine, right?
Correct. Yes, we
Good.
can. Thank
All
you.
right, I'm going to mute myself and keep playing. And I cannot show you that screen because since I've been creating shortcuts for such a long time, it doesn't show me an introductory screen. So this is the screen I get when I launch shortcuts, and you may get it too if you've played around with the app a lot and you're in iOS 16.
Edit. Button. Add new folder. Button. Shortcuts. Cutting. All shortcuts. Button. 1-9. Forward. Image. My shortcuts. Button. 1-2. Forward. Image. Share sheet. Button. Forward. Image. Apple Watch. Button. 6. Forward. Image. Folders. Button. Cutting. Starter shortcuts. Button. 4. Forward. Image. App shortcuts. Button. Cutting. American. Button. Books. Button. Michaels. Button. Starbucks. Button. Voice memos. Button. Selected. Shortcuts. Tab. 1 of 3. Automation. Tab. 2 of 3. Gallery. Tab. 3 of 3. Now, if you see this screen, don't let that flummox you because all it's doing is showing you a list of folders on your system that contain shortcuts. For example, there are some shortcuts in here for Starbucks and for American Airlines. So your folders will depend on what you've done with your device, what apps you've installed, how you've personalized it, and that's going to vary with everybody. And you notice there was also numbers. So what we had was a button to open that folder followed by the number of shortcuts in that folder. So I'm now going to open the My Shortcuts folder because I need to get to the Add New Shortcut button, and this screen does not have the Add New Shortcut button. That's why I spent time showing it to you, because if you're looking for that button and you're only finding a list of folders, that's the problem. You need to go into a folder before you can add a new shortcut. And this is new in iOS 16. In older versions of iOS, you did not have this list of folders. So, add new folder. Button. And of course, you can add a new folder in this screen, but you can't add a new shortcut. So you really do have to go to your one of your folders. My shortcuts. Button. So once you get to one of your folders, the first thing you'll see is a Shortcuts Back button. Shortcuts Back button. Followed by Edit button. Edit just lets you rearrange the order that they appear on this screen. Grid button. Grid lets you choose between grid or list, which matters if you're doing Explore by touch, but not if you're flicking. Create shortcut button. And there is the Create Shortcut button. I kept saying Add New Shortcut, but that's because I was looking at Add New Folder, but it's actually the Create Shortcut button. My shortcuts. Cutting. And then there's a list of all of the shortcuts that I've created. Search. Search field. There's a search field for searching through in case I had such a giant list of shortcuts I couldn't find one on this screen. Get it. Button. Speak text. 3 actions. Send Bob a glimpse. 2 actions. Turn up the volume. 2 actions. Tell Bob, I'm at work. Send I'm at work. To Robert Armstrong. Button. And these are the shortcuts I've already created. Text Bob now. Send a message to Robert Armstrong. Button. Actions available. Okay, and I'll talk about actions available in a minute, but what it means is that you are on the actions rotor and you can flick up and down to sort of do context menu operations on that particular item.
Now let's go to the bottom of the screen to look at the 3 tabs.
Tab bar. Selected. Shortcuts. Tab. 1 of 3.
That's where we are. We're at the Shortcuts tab.
Automation. Tab. 2 of 3.
Automation, I talked to you about it before. It lets events trigger shortcuts.
Gallery. Tab. 3 of 3.
Now, I'm going to let you explore Gallery on your own, but that's where you see a curated list of shortcuts that Apple has provided that you can play around with. So we're going to focus on just creating a new shortcut here.
Create shortcut. Button.
I'm going to double tap that.
Create shortcut. New shortcut. Actions menu. Button.
Now this is where we have a very confusing screen. I'm going to let Zoe read it all the way through just so you know what's here. But remember that you can expand and collapse different parts of it, so you don't have to see everything at once.
New shortcut. Actions menu. Button. Done. Button. Create a shortcut to actions you do in your apps every day. Add action. Button. Next action suggestions. Button. Cutting. Send message. Button. Open app. Button. Play music. Button. Actions controller. Minimized. Search for apps and actions. Search field. Dictate. Button. Undo. Dimmed. Button. Redo. Dimmed. Button. Info. Button. Share. Dimmed. Button. Run shortcut. Dimmed. Button.
The Run shortcut is in the very bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and it will allow you to run a shortcut that you're creating for testing purposes. It will also allow you to run a shortcut anytime when you're in this screen. You can see how confusing it is, so you have to think about what you want to do first, and you might even want to write the steps down first before you start fooling with this create shortcut screen. But what I want to do now is create a shortcut that will say my location out loud. Because many times I'm on paratransit and I don't know where we are. I don't know how close to my house I am. I don't know how many more people we're picking up. Or let's say you're on a bus and you don't know if you're getting near your stop. So I think this is a very useful shortcut, and it's a lot simpler than pulling up Blind Square or some other mapping application.
Add action. Button.
And this is the button you want. All that other stuff on the screen is simply giving you ideas, and you can actually collapse all that. But right now I want to add an action, and my first action is going to be get location. And the reason I know that is I've done this kind of a shortcut before.
Actions controller. Full screen.
The Actions controller lets you access the Actions library. It can either be full screen, half screen, or completely minimized. But whenever you tap on it, you can toggle between those 3 states. I'm going to keep it a full screen now, and we will read this full screen just so you can see what it looks like.
Actions controller. Full screen. Search for apps and actions. Search field. Dictate. Button. Selected. Categories. Button. 1 of 2. Apps. Button. 2 of 2. All actions. Button. Favorites. Button. Scripting. Button. Sharing. Button. Location. Button. Documents. Button. Media. Button. Web. Button. Suggestions from your apps. Based on how you use your iPhone. Call. Button. Robert Armstrong. Button. Send message. Button. Robert L. Armstrong. Button. Robert Armstrong. Button. Create recording. Button. Play recording. Button. Configuration. Button. Get do not disturb state. Button. Turn off do not disturb. Button. Share location with Robert Armstrong. Button. Share location with Robert Armstrong. Button. Play. Button. Show VIP mailbox. Button. Get directions to 1636 Fallen Leaf Drive. Button. Get directions to services 21250 Stevens Creek Boulevard. Button.
We can't hear.
The reason there's so much stuff here is because it's
We can't hear.
sample actions that I've used before. Now, So people are saying they can't hear?
I was able to
Yes,
hear,
I
but
couldn't hear anything.
I'm
I
not
was
sure
also
last
if
part.
Avril.
I was
Can't
also
hear.
able to hear.
Can hear.
I can keep playing it or not.
I would keep playing. Is there a way that you could back it up like 30 seconds?
Yeah, hang on. This is Studio Recorder. Thank goodness I'm using Studio
Zoom
Recorder.
recording. Pause recording.
Media, button, web, button, suggestions from your apps. Based on how you use your iPhone. Call, button, Robert Armstrong, button, send message, button, Robert L.
Now these are just
Armstrong,
all the
button,
ideas it's showing
Robert
me, so this is
Armstrong,
not that
button,
important.
create recording, button, play recording, button, configuration, button, get do not disturb state, button, turn off do not disturb, button, share location with Robert Armstrong, button, share location with Robert Armstrong, button, play, button, show VIP mailbox, button, get directions to 1636 Fallen Leaf Drive, button, get directions to Disability Support Services, 21250 Stevens Creek Boulevard, button.
The reason there's so much stuff here is because it's pulling sample actions that I've used before. Now, there are two ways I can find the location action. I can actually just use the location category and look under it, or I can go to the search field and enter the word location.
Can everybody hear?
Location category already on screen. I'm going to pull that up.
Farhan, yes, we can hear.
I don't know why I can't hear anything.
That's okay, Farhan. You need to mute yourself. Sorry.
Location, button,
And I'm going to double tap that.
location, actions controller, full screen. Location, cutting, close, filter locations, button, get current location, button, get details of locations, button, location, button, addresses, get addresses from input, street address, button, maps, get details of parked car, get maps URL, get parked car location, open directions, button.
So you can see there's a
Actions
huge number of choices under here. And I already know that I need to get my current location.
Get current location, button, actions available.
Now, if I double tap this, I am going to get some choices. I will show you what they are.
Get current location, gets the current location of the device. Result location,
Notice we have this concept of the result that I told you about before. So double tapping on it gives us information about the action, so we know if it's the action we want.
add as favorite, close, get current location, cutting, close, but
We can close this information window.
add as favorite, but
We can add it as a favorite so it becomes part of the favorites category.
add to shortcut,
We can add it to the shortcut, which is what we want to do.
show options menu, button, pop-up button,
Let me show you what's under the options menu.
show info, favorite, button, duplicate, button, copy, button, remove, button, dismiss context menu, button.
So the options menu doesn't really help you right now, but I wanted to show it to you so you won't find it confusing. I'm going to dismiss it.
Get current location, actions menu, button, done, button, get current location, show options menu, get current location, remove action from shortcut, actions, next action suggestions, button, cutting.
And now again, we have a lot of suggestions. I do not find them that helpful. I am going to collapse the next action suggestions. When you're learning to create shortcuts, you might want to look through them, though.
Next action suggestions, cutting, actions controller, minimized.
And I'm going to expand the actions controller because that's what I want. I know what action I want to pick next.
Actions controller, half screen.
So we are still in locations category, and I know from experience I cannot speak the current location in the state that it is. That's because I tried creating a shortcut to do that and it didn't work. First I had to get the details from that location, that is the address, because right now it's just sort of an internal variable that is being ready to pass to some other function.
Get details of locations, button. Actions available.
And get details of location is what I want. So once again,
Add to shortcut.
I'm going to add it to my shortcut. And this time I just flicked up because that was one of the actions and the actions rotor was active. All right, now we have two actions. We have the get current location and get details of current location. So let's just check this all out starting at the top of the screen.
Location. Get details of locations. Actions menu. Button. Done. Button. Get current location. Show options menu. Get current location. Remove action from shortcut. Get details of locations. Show options menu. Get detail from current location.
And that's what
Actions
is
available.
now happening. It's getting the details from the current location.
Remove action from shortcut.
We don't want to remove this action.
Actions. Next action suggestions.
And here again we have our suggestions.
Actions controller. Minimized.
But I have collapsed
available.
the suggestions. So now I'm going to maximize the actions controller because my next choice that I want here in my actions is speak.
Actions controller. Half screen. Actions controller. Full screen. Location. Cutting.
Now notice we're still in the location category. So I'm going to go up to the search field.
Action library. Search for apps and actions. Search field. Search field is editing.
And I'm
Search
going to
for
search
apps
for
and
the word
actions.
speak.
Search point at start.
Now, I have searched before for the word voice and the word speech, and that has not given me what I want. I think iOS 16 does a little bit better job of matching your search results, but I know if I search for the word speak, I'll get what I want. Speak.
Inserted speak.
And I just dictated it. Now I'll do the search.
Space. Search. Search. Actions controller. Full screen. Action library. Speak. Search field. Documents. Speak text. Button.
Now it's under the documents
Actions available.
category, and speak text is the button that I want. So let's read about it first by double tapping on it.
Speak text. Speaks the inputted text aloud. Text result text the input.
Okay, so we're going to do
Add to shortcut. Button.
add to shortcut.
Add to shortcut. Get details of locations. Show options menu. Button. Pop-up button.
And now it's showing me the actions that I have added.
Get detail from current location. Remove action from shortcut. Speak text. Show options menu. Button. Speak details of locations. Remove action from shortcut. Actions. Next action suggestions. Button. Actions controller. Minimized. Toolbar. Undo. Redo. Dimmed. Button.
So I'm going to
Info. Button. Share. Button. Run shortcut. Button.
run the shortcut.
Run shortcut finished. Run shortcut. Button. Run shortcut finished.
Now, the reason that it is not working is because I need to alter speak text so that nothing else happens until it's done speaking. I know this because I've debugged this shortcut before. So I'm going to go back to speak text. And what I'm doing here is I'm double flicking on this.
Remove action. Speak details of locations.
And
Actions available.
when I get here, actions available is relevant because I'm going to flick up and down to see what I can do with this action to customize it.
Show more.
there's show more, which is what I want.
Edit. Text. Details of locations.
Now this edit text would be if I wanted it to say something else, but I'm going to have it just say the details of the location and not anything else. But if I wanted to say, hello everyone, I'm here, this is where I would do it.
Activate. Default. Show more.
And I'm going to double tap on show more.
Wait until finished. Switch button. On.
I want to wait until finished.
Rate. 50. Adjustable. Pitch. 1. Adjust language. English. Voice. Samantha. Button.
And here I can change the voice.
Actions. Next action suggest speak text. Samantha. Button. Aaron.
And I'll pick Aaron.
Speak text. Actions menu. Button. Speak text. Done. Button.
And we'll do done.
Done. Shortcuts. Back button. Speak text 1. 3 actions. Button.
And here's our shortcut, so we're going to try to run it.
Running shortcut.
Anza College, 21,250 Stevens Creek Boulevard, Cupertino, CA 95,014, United States.
Shortcut finished.
Okay, so that was my demo. Let me unshare my screen here. I hope that worked. I'll just close Studio Recorder. Okay, you guys should be able to hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
And you should not hear Jaws now.
Correct. We do not.
All right, excellent. And we are going to now see how many hands we have, because if we have a lot of hands, I will not play my second demo, which I think maybe is not a good idea because so many people had trouble hearing. So how many hands do we have?
Currently, we have one. We'll give another moment. If you do have a question, please raise your hand.
All right, we'll give you a moment to raise your hand, and I will just talk briefly about automations. So automations are a kind of shortcut that you do not run. Remember I said there were 6 ways to run a shortcut? Well, guess what? You don't run automations. They run all on their own because they are, quote, triggered, quote, and that is the word, triggered, by an event. And there's a ton of events you can have. You can have, at a particular time, run an automation. When you connect to Wi-Fi, when you disconnect from your charger, all sorts of things. So automations was the second tab there, the center tab. And creating an automation is a lot like creating a shortcut. And I did a demo on how to do that. But I realized, oh my God, I always prepare more than I have enough time to do. So that's why I wanted to give y'all a choice of whether you wanted to have your questions answered or whether you wanted to hear that automations demo. And I can always come back and do a whole session on automations as well, if you would like. So how many hands do we have now?
So currently we have 3 hands raised.
Cool. Well, let's just go ahead and take those questions and see how long that takes. Call
Okay.
on them.
Perfect. So Pritham, I believe that's pronounced correctly. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Great presentation. I think I've tried the shortcuts, but I was confused, so never used it. First thing, I saw that there's a share button in the shortcuts app. So can I create a shortcut and share it with my friends? Is that doable?
You could email it. You're going to see the very same share sheet you normally see. There's nothing special. It's just like the share button you see everywhere else. And so if you, I don't think you can text them, but you can certainly email them, and you can include them in apps that will accept them.
Right. So
yeah, go ahead. Or you can.
They have to have the same apps. Right.
They do have to have the same app. There are a lot of sites like Mac Stories where you can download shortcuts too from a shortcuts archive.
Okay. Perfect. And one other quick thing. So if I make a shortcut on my iPad, will it sync with my iPhone?
Yes, it will. In fact, my iPad has all of the iPhone shortcuts except the ones that are specific to iOS 16 because my iPad is an old thing. And if you have
Okay.
any vision, you probably will be happier doing it on the iPad so you can see all the little blue pill-shaped things that are the results and all the little arrows, because seeing those little arrows can really help you see how actions relate to each other.
Right. It's just that say if I have location-based shortcuts, and my iPad does not have maps, so would that still work?
It will still work because location services is built internally into iOS. And I forgot to mention, iOS 16.4 now lets you directly speak your location. You don't have to get details of location. But I had done this demo before I'd upgraded. So I was having to pull the whole details before it would speak them. But that's not true anymore.
Got it. Thank you so much. This has
You're
been
welcome.
very helpful.
All right, next question.
Thank you, Pritham. Tom, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, just to get started for one simple task, because it's kind of a lot, but
Yeah, it is.
like it's something that I'm trying to do is I make a lot of voice memos and I'm physically going into the app and looking for it, and just to simply make a note onto my voice memos. Where would you start?
Go into Siri under settings. Then at the bottom, scroll down and there's a big list of apps. Pick voice recorder or voice memos, I think it's called.
I'm writing it down. Speak list of recorders. Go ahead.
So
Yeah.
it's voice memos. You're going to go into voice memos, and this is under Siri suggestions, and it's going to show you all of the one-line app shortcuts that are available. And one of them is record voice memo, and you're going to pick that, and you're going to pick add to Siri. And after that, when you say to Siri, record voice memo, it will do just that, but you'll still have to stop it. If you want to do something more complicated, you'll have to use the shortcuts app. Like for me, I wanted it to turn itself off after an hour, so I had to create a shortcut to do that.
How do I turn it off after I made my one sentence note?
Well, voice memo is gonna pop up and it's gonna start recording and you're gonna see a stop button.
Okay. Great. I mean, it's nice to just have some basics then build on.
I know, and that's the way to do it for anybody who wants just to do a one-line shortcut is go into Siri and look up your shortcut by app, and you'll see all of the shortcuts that the app exposes. That's a programming term. That means it makes it available to you.
But then you're saying after you do that on 5 or 10, then it's too many and you need to do it a different way?
No, it's if you want more than one step. Like, okay, if you want to just record a voice memo, that's fine. But if you want to record a voice memo and stop it after a pre-configured time, then you have to make a shortcut. Or if you want to just check your flight status, that's one step. But if you want to check your flight status and text it to your girlfriend and make a note of your gate, that you're going to need to do a shortcut for. So you do a shortcut if it's more than one step. But if it's just one step, you can pick an app shortcut if it's already been made available to you.
So with this voice memo, I would do one step to get it going, and then I would physically turn the button off.
That is correct. But if you become more advanced, you could go with the Shortcuts app and create a more elaborate shortcut to automate it more thoroughly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next question.
Stacy, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello.
This is Stacy Grijalva.
Hi, Stacey.
Thank you so much for coming today. This has been awesome. I've played around with Siri shortcuts for a while, and it is totally confusing to me. And I wondered, since you are on summer break, would it be possible to have you come to the center and teach my AT team and myself or walk us through some of these steps for an hour or so. There are a couple of shortcuts that we would like to create and share with clients that have issues like inputting contacts, like for new people. I did find a third-party shortcut, but it doesn't work well, and you can't share it. And we don't want all that information that one has. It has too many steps. We want to make something more simpler. But would that be something that you would be interested in?
Try.
Okay.
I am not a wizard. I'm someone who loves to go in and explore, but I might end up spending more than an hour exploring, trying to figure out how to do something, because I was a software engineer for 30 years, so I have the concepts, but sometimes the Shortcuts app is very confusing and you're searching around trying to figure out what is the name of the action I need to do this thing.
Yes, I know. I'm definitely not a software engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, but yeah. So, okay, so I'll just reach out to you via email.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
perfect.
And I'm not on a full break. I'm only off on Fridays.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to have all of August free, but unfortunately, I'm going to be going out of town to visit people in Indiana. So.
Okay.
We'll have to
Okay.
fit it in somehow.
All right. Well, I will email you, and if we can work something out, that would be great. We'll buy you lunch and make you feel like a princess for a couple of hours.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Next hand.
Actually, Bob, do we have anything for next month that you know of for Check It Out? Because I know I don't have anything.
Not currently.
Okay. Maybe we can. Well, that's going to be.
I could do automations. I have a whole automations demo and like at least another hour on automations that I realized I wasn't going to have time for.
Well, maybe we could do that for next month.
Yeah,
but
I'm available the first Friday in August. After that, I'm gone.
Okay. Okay. And I'll email that to I'll be in contact with you with that as well. Thank you. Okay.
Next hand.
Thanks, Stacy. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering to stay with the same theme of maybe the top 5 or 10 things that the blind are going to be doing, or everyday people, but going back to like calling your husband. So let's say you call him the first time, what would be, how would you build that in, if the proper term is shortcut, because you're going to be calling him a lot?
Well, I have a funny story to tell you, which may help you understand this a little bit better. Now, long before there was shortcuts, so go back in your mind, there are no shortcuts. This is like the 10 years ago. I was riding on paratransit and I said to Siri, call my husband. We have a whole bunch of people on the van, right? And Siri said to me, which husband? Now, the reason that happened was because Siri did not need a shortcut to call my husband. But the problem was that I had 2 copies of his contact record. So how many times have you said, call Joe, and it said, what number do you want? Joe Mobile or Joe Mobile? And you're like, stupid thing. So Siri can call people. Siri can do a lot of stuff. What are my meetings today? What's the weather like today? Tell me a joke. It can do all that stuff without shortcuts. You do not need a shortcut to get Siri to do stuff. But if you want something very specific, so my problem with my husband was that he has a Google Voice number. And so when I said, call my husband, it always wanted to call that Google Voice number. And he wanted me to call his cell, or he wanted me to call him at home. And even when I said, call Robert Armstrong at home or call my husband at home, it had a lot of trouble because it got confused with this Google Voice number. So I ended up creating a shortcut, call my husband, so that it would always call him on his cell. So you need a shortcut when Siri just basically isn't doing it right. But you should always try to see if Siri can just do it on its own without a shortcut first. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Next hand, I'm slurping coffee.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Farhang, I see that you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, Debbie.
Hello.
Wonderful presentation. I'll be coming personally to meet you to
I
guide
bet
me
you
through.
will. You know, he knows where my office is, you guys.
Yes, I know it. All right, Debbie, thank you very much. And request to Bob and Stacy, if you can hold the next presentation in person at the Vista Center at San Jose, not in Palo Alto, if possible.
Well, I got this small complication called a job, so sometimes it can be hard for me, and I don't want to spend 3 hours getting all these other places when I work full time. So maybe, but no promise.
So will it be possible at the San Jose Vista Center?
It is possible, but I'm not making any promises.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Debbie. Lovely hearing your voice.
Yeah,
Thanks,
come
Farhang.
by and visit me sometime. Bye-bye,
Sure. I will. Take care.
Okay, I see that Mickey has their hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, Siri has this very annoying thing that it does right now, and you tell it to do something like call somebody, and then it says to who.
Right, and that's a perfect case for a shortcut.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. But on that screen, at that point, is there a button that says go ahead and create one? Or you mentioned
you've got to go into the Shortcuts app, or you can try looking in the phone app under Siri suggestions or the contacts app and see what it's showing you. And everybody's phone is a little different. You're going to see suggestions based on frequently used actions or actions it thinks that you need. So it's going to use artificial intelligence to give you suggestions that may be different than the suggestions on my phone.
Okay, what I was trying to do is make sure that I understood when is it that you can really change it, and when is it that Siri's just being ridiculous and somebody's got to fix it.
Well, Siri always has a default thing it's going to do. And if you don't like that, that's when you're going to create a shortcut, and that overrides the default thing that Siri was going to do. That used to not be true. Siri would still try to do its dumb default thing. But in iOS 16 now, I haven't seen that problem.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your help, and good to talk to you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mickey. Let's see. So we'll do Rita. Go ahead.
Great demo, Debbie. I love your analogies of like, having a recipe where you've got to do things in order. And I think people understanding that process, it's a matter of getting in there just like you've done and digging around to build the shortcut that you want that's very specific to what your needs are. Really good. And just to mention that that gallery, under that gallery tab, there's a lot of shortcuts that have already been created, so you don't have to do all this work. If there's something like, estimated time of arrival, start my playlist. So there's they've already done some work on some of these that people could try just to kind of get a taste
and
of
customized.
Yes.
You can customize those. You pull those up and you can add your own stuff or delete stuff you don't want in them.
And I haven't even done that. Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
So
I took the word of the day, which puts your word of the day on screen, and I customized it so it spoke my word of the day. And that was the very first shortcut I ever did. I took one that was already there and I customized it.
That is great. So you would just pull that up and you would edit it, yes?
That's correct. there's a button that says add shortcut to your folder. I don't remember. It has different names depending on which version of iOS, but it adds a shortcut to your list, and then you can go in and do edit shortcut, and then you can start changing it. Or you can just
Great.
run it and see what it does, and then start changing it.
Exactly. And I think that's the key here is not being afraid to get in there and kind of dig around.
That's right.
Because and if it messes up, you just start over.
And the one thing I would say about my demo is I really had 3 different tasks I was trying to accomplish. I was trying to show you what was on screen. I was trying to show you how to create a shortcut, and I was trying to show you how to use the Shortcuts app. And that was a little hard to do because when I'm doing shortcuts, I'm not reading the whole gosh darn screen. I know where I want to go. I know what I want to do. But I didn't want to make it so fast that I bypassed things on the screen that people would go, what is that? That wasn't in our demo. So I wanted to make sure that I had VoiceOver read a lot of the clutter on screen just so people would not be flummoxed by it.
Yep. That's a good idea, because I find that sometimes when people just touch their screen, well, the VoiceOver cursor has jumped, and they may miss some elements if they're brand new if they need to know what's on that entire screen.
Right.
If they would do a 2-finger flick up, it would read the entire screen, and if they'd have the patience to listen, so they can kind of see, okay, these elements are on the screen, and then they can start flicking. But I find when people are just touching or they're sliding, especially if they're sliding, things are getting skipped.
And once you're experienced, that's how you are going to do it. But when you're a beginner, you really have to have both patience and curiosity.
Yes.
Let's see how many other hands we have.
So we've got 2 more hands. Ben, go ahead.
Am I on, or am I muted?
You're on.
You're on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion for previous caller there that about troubles when you say phone somebody, like phone John or something like that, or call John or whatever. I was having that trouble too, and what I ended up doing was saying the word telephone, and that took care of the problem.
That's a good tip.
So that's it.
Tip. We could probably do a whole session on Siri, and I have all these numbers in my contacts with commas in them so that I can get through those voice response systems. So I call VTA paratransit a lot. So I have call VTA paratransit dispatch, call VTA paratransit scheduling. So I don't have to sit there and push 1 and 3 and all that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do with Siri without even using shortcuts.
Yep,
Next hand.
Yep, that's it.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. Jane, go ahead. Let me go ahead and ask to unmute you. All right, we'll come back to them. Tom, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yes, going back on another question, as I was suggesting possibly the top 5 or 10 things that we do, practical applications to get going. That was a great one for where am I, and to elaborate, like I was almost in a situation the other day to call 911, but as a blind person, I wouldn't know I'm in front of 123 Main Street. So could you give that on how to do that simple one?
Well, I just did a demo on it. You probably want to listen to the recording. The only thing I would say is you don't have to get details of location now. You can just do 2 actions, get location and speak text, and it would speak the current location because that's been fixed apparently. Next hand.
Okay. Wonderful. Jane, I see that you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I missed the first part of this presentation. Will it be, has it been recorded?
Yes, 2 people have recorded it, and I will be able to send out the recording to people. And at the end of all this, I will give out my email again.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Farhang, I see that you have your hand up.
Thank you, Ryan. Debbie, I've got a couple of questions regarding Hey Lady. Whenever I ask Hey Lady to call somebody, or calculate something, it will first say, aha, and then it will not talk to me. It will not say calling so and so, or it will
Rahim,
not.
I have no idea. I just got my Alexa device about a week ago.
Uh-huh.
I am one of the few blind people who
No,
has
no, no,
not
no. I'm
had
talking
one
about
of these things.
No, I'm talking about Siri. Hey
Oh,
Siri.
Siri.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So when I say hey Siri, it will say uh-huh. And then when I ask her a question, it will not respond to me. There'll be some link, or the answer will be on the iPhone. It will not read it out to me. So what do I do to make it read? Tell me actually what the answer is.
I wonder if it's having trouble with your accent. Have you tried putting your phone into another language and speaking to it in another language?
No, it answers my questions. It answers it correctly in a text form on the iPhone.
Okay.
But it doesn't
so
read
you
it
may
to
have
me.
that accessibility. I think there's a tap to Siri for hearing impaired people. Maybe you have that turned on.
What is it called?
Tap to Siri.
Tap to
T-A-P.
T-A-P.
If my phone got in that state, I would go to an Apple store and get them to solve it. Because that's what I paid for. That's why I bought an iPhone instead of a cheapy Android phone. So I can go to an Apple store and get one of those tech guys to solve my problem.
Oh, okay.
What are they called? Geniuses. You make an appointment with a genius bar and you get some nice, helpful genius to fix the problem.
Oh, okay.
I always tell my mom that too, because my mom would call me and go, my iPhone isn't doing anything right. I'm like, Mom, go make an appointment with a genius bar. That's what you paid for.
Correct. Like when I say call so and so, it will not tell me that I'm calling so and so. It will put up the number on the screen. Are you sure you want me to call this person? But it will not talk to me. It will just be in text message on my screen. And it's good that I can see what's being written.
I have seen that before too. Is your iOS current? Do you have the most current version?
No, I have the 6S Plus.
Well, maybe that's the problem, is that you just have an older version of iOS that has some bugs that have been fixed. I would say, once again, go visit a genius. I'm not going to solve it here.
Okay.
Let them earn their paycheck.
Sure. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All right. Have a wonderful day and a weekend. Take care.
Diane, go ahead.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much, Debbie, for being here. I really appreciate it. So I just had one quick tip and then a question. And my tip was just to let people know that one of my favorite shortcuts is you go into the Seeing AI app and go into the settings and then Siri shortcuts, and you can establish a phrase that you want, such as how much is this? And then when you're just using your phone out and about, you can just say the words to Siri, how much is this? And it'll automatically open the app, open the camera, look at it and tell you how much it is, as far as, if it's a $20 bill or a $1 bill, that kind of thing.
Oh, identifying currency. Yeah.
Yeah. So for currency or for reading text or anything else, but the Seeing AI shortcuts that you can program within the Seeing AI app are really neat. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. And my question to you is, one of the things I'm having trouble with is VoiceOver does not work with the Yelp app. And I recall you mentioning something about how you could create a shortcut that will do some OCR of a screen for you and read it. Is there a way to kind of read Yelp reviews, or at least a page of Yelp reviews for a particular business?
Well, Well, I have
By
a
creating a
shortcut that
shortcut
takes a
that way?
screenshot and then reads the text in the screenshot. So if it's a
Okay,
scrollable screen, you're only going to see what's on that
right.
particular screen. But it's really only two actions. It's take screenshot, and then the other one is get text from image is the name of the, and then speak text. So it's 3 steps. So get screenshot, get text from image, and speak text. Those are the 3 actions that you're going to need.
Okay. So I'm wondering, for instance, if you're looking at a restaurant, would it be able to say that, you know, this restaurant is rated 3.5
I have no idea. I never
stars?
used Yelp. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. But
Okay.
but you know, I know that that particular shortcut works for taking a screenshot and reading it back.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will try that. I really appreciate it.
Next hand.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dan. Actually, that's all the hands we currently have raised.
Cool. So you want me to go ahead and repeat my email again? We're probably going to get close to 11:30 anyway, right?
That would be perfect. It's 11:24 right now.
All right. So I'm going to take a while to say it because people are always like, would you repeat that? So
Pause recording.
say it very carefully. It's Armstrong Deborah at deanza.edu. So let's start with Armstrong. That's the dude who landed on the moon. It's A as in Alpha, R as in Romeo, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, T as in Tango, R as in Romeo, O as in Oscar, N as in November, G as in Golf. That's Armstrong. No spaces. The next is Deborah, which is my first name. That's D as in Delta, E as in Echo, B as in a boy, O as in Oscar, R as in Romeo, A as in Alpha, and H as in hotel. So that's the Deborah part. Then there's the @ sign, and then it's deanza.edu, and it is D as in Delta, E as in Echo, A as in Alpha, N as in November, Z as in Zulu, A as in Alpha, then there's a period, and there's edu, which is E as in Echo, D as in Delta, U as in uniform. Armstrong Deborah at deanza.edu. And if for some reason you still don't have my email address, you can actually look me up on the Deanza website because it is a public address because I work with the public. So any last thoughts from anybody?
Yes, Debbie, question. The previous person said you can have an AI shortcut. Is it possible to have an AI shortcut? I'm not talking about seeing AI, the AI shortcut, which is the ChatGPT version.
I have no idea. I mean, I've used ChatGPT in Edge, but nowhere else. So I don't know. Google for it.
No, just now the lady who asked you the question about AI shortcut. Can we have the?
I was talking about how the phone uses a lot of artificial intelligence to figure out which suggestions to show you. And that's why it's going to be different on everybody's phone because it's looking at what do you do on your phone all the time. Since I use my phone to call a lot, it's going to keep offering me call shortcuts. If I use my phone a lot, say to take pictures, I would probably get a lot of photo suggestions.
Okay. All right, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Farhang. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
All right, guys. I guess we're done. And we're on time.
Bob, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Deborah. We appreciate your presentation today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And hope to see you all out at the picnic tomorrow in San Jose. And with that, we'll see you next time.